morning, everyone. Good to see you all. Day 9. So we're going to continue to explore, really briefly, the structure of sound according to the Nāda yogis. And it's an intriguing relationship, the relationship between experience and philosophy, or experience and knowledge. What has more value? And so obviously the experience of the thing is more enriching and more supportive to the process and to transformation than the knowledge of the thing. But the inevitable reality that we may have doubt, we may have skepticism in relationship to the process. Especially with the inner work of meditation, it's not necessarily linear and it's subtle. So you don't know if you're doing it right. You don't know if you're gaining grounds in terms of success or in terms of depth. Those ideas must orbit your mind. Am I doing it right? Am I doing it wrong? Where is this taking me? I'm sacrificing time. I'm sacrificing myself and time to this process. Inevitably, we seek some sort of we seek some sort of reward, or we seek consequence for our efforts. And so, obviously, the experience is what matters most, but the knowledge really helps us sort of build that sense of faith. And when we encounter said experiences and we have a little bit of knowledge, we have a Sanskrit word or we have a philosophy that parallels our experience, it informs us that we're moving in the correct direction, we're doing the right thing, and our process or our practice is lining up with the practitioners that came before us. Consider it, and even if you don't have a relationship to these ideas after they're shared, if they resonate with you, that's beautiful. But you'll be surprised if you keep practicing, not necessarily speaking to these techniques, but if you keep practicing and you keep reading, concepts of meditation and the memoirs of powerful practitioners, it's a really sweet moment to touch what they touched, even if that epiphany within your practice is separated by time. So think about it. So the Nāda yogis, right? They sat there, they're worshiping sound, they're singing. That's ahata. They're interacting with the vibration of song, and then they're meditating on the inner sounds, anahata, and they're essentially feeling the vibratory nature of their inner chanting or their inner body. They took it upon themselves to break sound apart again. So from 2, it becomes 4. So the 4 layers of sound at this point are Vaikhari, so audible sound, what you're hearing right now. Then Madhyama, so I always think of Madhyama as the middle sound, and in their genius and creative insight, they inferred that there are sounds they cannot hear. And so I always relate this more practically to infrasonic and ultrasonic sound, right? A blue whale's call, blue whale's voice or language, so to speak, is so much lower than our capacity to hear or even feel. The sperm whale, with its huge snout, when it communicates to other members of its species and divers are in front of it, divers are struck with such resonance that they can be paralyzed for moments. They can stick their hands out in front of a sperm whale snout and just feel the vibration shaking and rattling their body. And so infrasonic and ultrasonic sound. And we all know that that's there. And it's really beautiful. Again, knowledge versus the experience. When you sit down and you deeply consider that there is a cacophony or an orchestra happening right now around you, and it's only the fact that your and my little ears and the specificity of my eardrums and my brain can't process that tune, that orchestra. For whatever reason, it mystifies the reality, and we become deeply aware of how small we are and how much more there is to experience, not in some distant land, but in regards to what is directly in front of us, in regards to the ordinary. And so Madhyama is just that, infra and ultrasonic sound. The third is Pashyanti, and so this is the sound that can be seen. And there are a couple different ways of sort of considering this. More traditionally, if you read about Pashyanti, it'll say that when you're meditating and you have visualizations in the mind, maybe colors, glimpses of this, glimpses of that, that is Pashyanti. It's the inner sound, but you're seeing it play out through the mind's eye, or Agna Chakra. And while that is necessary, this is the realm of critical and high thought. So while that is a way of interpreting Pashyanti in a more traditional way, I also like to project it out into the world, that everything you do see, your body, your clothes, your possessions, the space in front of you, that is the consequence of atomic vibration and would also be classified as Pashyanti. And so Pashyanti is also the sound that is felt. When you're feeling your body, when you're feeling your clothing on your skin, that is sound, that is vibration, that is also Pashyanti. But while you're meditating, more traditionally, anything that you see in the mind's eye is Pashyanti. And then the final sound, the Paranada, is the unending, unchanging, eternal sound. The sound that will be here before the earth, is engulfed by our expanding sun, and was there, or after the earth is engulfed by our expanding sun, and before, the Big Bang, before what we know of as the beginning of the universe. And so when you take the time to consider, again, mystifying our reality, both modern science and ancient science and observation believe that the universe started. The human mind believes in beginnings and believes in endings because everything it beholds begins and ends. And so they project that out into the universe. Therefore, the universe must begin and end. And then the next obvious question that even a child would ask is, so what happened before the beginning? And both minds, separated or distanced across centuries, believe it started with a vibration, a sound. And so the Om is that sound in yogic thought. And so when you perceive the world, you perceive the entirety of the universe, and you consider that entire world, that entire universe is reduced into just one little mote of something on the wavelength of the Om. And then you sit there chanting that Om, connecting to that expansive sort of metaphor. Again, it is expanding, and it's a way for the individual to wrap their minds around the whole thing, the entirety of it. And so these ideas really enrich and complicate, but also organize the unknowable dimensions of life. And so with that, let's get back to Nachiketas, right? The little boy who is the mystic. One quote from this book that really resonates with me is, as he's in line with the cattle and they're all making their way to the house of night, the house of death, of Yam, the boy says, of many I go the first, and of many I go the midmost. Meaning, of the people of your family, of your friends, you may be the first that you know of that's chanting the Om this seriously. You may be the Om, or the first that you know of that's really taking the time to wrap their mind around the mystic world and practicing in this way. You might not be, but you more than likely are. And so in that, of many you do go the first, and there are people behind you, many people behind you, that never chanted the Om, never thought of this, never committed their time the way you're committing your time to this really unique and existential space. But as you make your way deeper and deeper into these territories of thought and experience and meditation, you are by no means the first person to do this. You are not at the front of the line. And so you go the midmost. There are those that have practiced more than you. And as you get into this world and engage in this hobby, essentially, you'll find that there are powerful practitioners. But you will never be the last. There's always someone who's right behind you that is exploring the Om for the first time and that is making their way up this mountain alongside you. And so this is what Nachiketas is saying as he's exploring this space. And so in regards to the Om, in regards to chanting, in regards to using this idea and these sensations as a way of wrapping our minds around the unknowable and the eternal, the final wish, the defining moment of Nachiketas that really propels him into the realms of mystic nature versus just someone who wants to live a good life. Yam, the god of death, proposes the final wish. Nachiketas gets 3 wishes, and he makes 2 wishes, and then the final wish, he's a little bit confused. He's taking his time, so death proposes, why don't I give you everything you want, and I'll give your bloodline to come everything they want. And so Who wouldn't want that? That's everything you want. And Nachiketas looks at death and smirks because he sees through the trickery. And he says, but you give me everything you want or I want, and I live a long, beautiful life, but in the end, you'll come one day and you'll swoop it all away. You'll take it away, and I'll be here again. I'll be right in front of you again with everything I want out, behind me. And what's the point? What's the point of that? And Yam smiles at that point and says, well, that's just life. There's nothing I can do about it. Even I am powerless against death, the force of beginnings and ends. And so Nachiketa says, well, for my wish, what I want more than everything that I would want in terms of material possession, reputation, health, and sort of physical, material success, I want to know the unknowable. I want to know eternity. I want to know that which is beyond logic. I want to know that which is before the end and after the beginning. That is what I crave to understand and to connect to. And so Yam tells Nachiketas, even I can't give you that because that is beyond me. I am only death. But I can teach you the way, and the way is yoga. And so, again, reorganizing the point of what we're doing. It's not to be successful. It's not to optimize our being so that we can work harder and play harder. It is to understand something that at this point might be beyond our ability to understand. But with faith, if we look the thing in the eye, we have the hope as antakarana, as the divine instrument, that one day through practice and trusting these techniques and trusting these ideas that might not really make sense right now, that one day the epiphany will dawn. And we can look out into the world in a deeply unique and expansive way. And so we're going to work with the 4 nadas as 4 rungs in the ladder to help us get beyond our intellect. Groovy. So, hope all that resonated and motivated you to do essentially the same thing. We're going to chant the Om out loud. That is ahata, vocal sound, but it is also Vaikhari. It is also audible sound. And then we'll chant the Om very, very, very quietly. And you want to consider that you are attempting to get into infra and ultrasonic sound. Obviously, it's not because you can hear it, but we are, playing the game. And then we'll spend some moments in silence listening to the world to connect to this middle sound, Madhyama, the sound that can't be heard, but is still audible to other organisms. And then we'll chant the Om in our mind, just like we did yesterday. And this would be Pashyanti Nāda, the sound that is internally heard and felt, right? You're feeling the resonance in your body, Pashyanti Nāda, and then we will be silent and feel that everything is vibratory, and that is the Paranada. And we will use creative and artistic thoughts, just like our body is held in Bhumi Sparsha Mudra as a creative way of organizing the body. We will use creative and critical thought to project this vibration out into the world, that no matter what century, what eon any organism might exist, Earth or otherwise, if it would take the time to feel its body, it would certainly buzz with the sensation of an anonymous aliveness. And in that, you can connect to any alien organism, any imaginary organism, any person across time and space. And because of that, that might springboard you into a sense that, oh, at least in that dimension, I know the truth of experience. I know the truth of what it means to be alive. It buzzes. And then there, you might feel yourself lifted above the clouds of a more myopic state of mind. Groovy. So let's do this. Good to see you all. Strong seated position. Position 1. Rest your wrists on your knees. Very, very straight arms. Spread your fingers wide. And so for a second, just appreciate the limited nature of your state of mind. Not that it's wrong, but it is certainly limited. You pay attention to your life. You pay attention to what you know. It's very, very difficult to pay attention to what you don't know. And even more difficult to pay attention to what you can't perceive. And so this is the challenge and also the reward of mystic practice. Feel the sensations in your fingertips. Bring your fingers to your thumbs. And let's just take 3 very slow, well-designed breaths, swelling into the belly. Very, very slow, swelling into the rib cage. Avoid the collarbone area. As slowly as you're inhaling, attempt to double the length of your exhale. And just notice it feels good. When we can come to terms with the fact that life is beyond our comprehension and remain consciously aware of its expansiveness, its infinity. When we find joy in sitting as a tiny grain of nothingness at the feet of this extraordinary and expansive thing, the journey of our lives oddly becomes deeply more meaningful. The capacity to be grateful. We have the privilege of interacting with this divine force. We have the privilege of being humbled by our stature and its. That is a mystic space. So bring your hands to heart center and feel that stature. Allow the truth of the circumstance to reduce you, and it comes with peace. And if you can feel that, you're experiencing that peace tethered to humility, tethered to privilege. Attempt to memorize it. And in that effort of memorizing, you are branding this experience, this emotion, and the ideas associated with this emotion into your mind. Bhumi Sparsha Mudra, left hand to lap, right hand to knee, fingers facing the earth. Lengthen the spine yet again by tilting your hips forward, so you're tuning the instrument. That which is there before the beginning, that which will be there after the end. The single tone, the single syllable that pervades all experience, the Om. Let's chant audibly, Ahata, audible sound, Vaikhari, audible sound. And now hold silence for a moment. And listen to the world around you. Madhyama, infra and ultrasonic sound. Our experience of reality is truly, immeasurably limited. We see a fragment of the light spectrum. We hear a fragment of the sounds that create the world we think we know. And so chant the Om as quietly as you can. As if you were leaning against and pushing into that new dimension of sound. Notice how it focuses your mind. It pulls you deeper into yourself. Pashyanti Nāda. Repeat the Om in the mind, but feel it still resonating in the chest. Pashyanti Nāda is the inner sound that is seen, traditionally seen as visualizations, but also felt, seen as living bodies, seen as trees, seen as mountains. It's this vibration that seems to trigger or to enliven the vagus nerve. It's this vibration that seems to uplift our spirits by exciting that part of our biology that is responsible for peace. It is as mechanical as it is mystical. And now stop chanting the Om in the mind and just feel the resonance in the chest. If there's an itch on your face, if there's pressure in your knees or cramping in your back, any dimension of pain in your body, look into it. And you'll find that it vibrates in the same way. And at this point, attempting to touch Paranada, the eternal sound. Let's use our minds. Anything that exists, any living organism, must experience this at least. If the space between you and I could feel itself, certainly you would have to feel something like a buzz. Because everything at its core is undifferentiated vibration. This is the thesis of the Nāda yogis. And it's from this idea and the experience of their vibrating bodies that they learn to understand the world. And so feel the body vibrate and consider the expansiveness of true nature. The true scope of the timeline. The immensity of the experience. Focus on the center of your chest a little bit more intensely and start to associate that feeling, Hridayasya Nadyas, the Nadi channels in the center of the chest. That is the Om. That is not the idea of the Om. That is not the symbol of the Om. That is it. The concepts and the symbolism were tools used by practitioners to help relay a fairly complicated, mysterious, and unique experience. And to bring your hands to heart center, tall spine. Slow down your breath, relax your body. And continue to look into the sensation in the center of your chest. Continue to identify it, define it. This is Om. And as yogis believe in reincarnation, the eternity of the soul, this little buzz will be there and pull you through the house of night. It will pull you through the conversation with Yam. And it will be there. It will be the first thing in the new body, in the new chapter. Certainly a poetic idea. Thumb knuckles to third eye center. Technique, focus on the sensation. Even there, it buzzes. Slow down the breath. Just try to build upon your focus. With an exhale, release your hands. Position 1, random finger to each thumb. Lengthen the spine, straighten your arms, activate both sides of the nervous system. Shakti, power. Shanti, peace. Sympathetic, parasympathetic. Pingala, Ida. With the breath in, open your eyes. Just appreciate how small your field of vision is, how microscopic the world actually is, your world.